Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Take It to the Bank. My name is Stefanie Hammond, and I am the head nerd here at Enable that's responsible for all things sales and marketing related. The goal of these coaching videos is really to provide bite-sized sales and marketing advice, bite-sized guidance that you can immediately incorporate into your MSP that will hopefully pay off with either new leads or new signed contract clients at the end of the day. We are nearing the end of our multi-part training series focused on developing a marketing operating system for your MSP. This is a series that I have been co-delivering over the last 11 episodes with my friends from Wingman, Dave Sutton, Mark Copeman. And through these video series, our goal has really been to help MSPs really simplify, demystify, kind of the world of marketing and sales, and to help MSPs improve their marketing and sales know-how. So in this episode, we have finished, and let me bring up my our presentation slides.
This is ingrained in your mind now, Stefanie, isn't it? This diagram is ingrained in your mind.
It is. It is. All right. So bringing back up our puzzle piece. So we have done the deep dive dissection of the 8 different puzzle pieces that you're seeing here that make up an MSP's marketing operating system. But even though we've gone through the 8 pieces, we're not done. There's still a few more pieces that we wanted to talk about that really help round out the implementation of these different puzzle pieces. And so in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the human factor and the role that mentality and leadership and MSP culture plays in successfully building out and executing on your marketing operating system. So I think, Mark, you wanted to kind of start with this one. So how does a business owner's mentality, their leadership style, how does that have a role and an impact in the success of implementing something like the marketing operating system?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, Stefanie. We put this box in when we first came up with this concept, nearly a couple of years ago now, because there's hundreds of different marketing frameworks out there. Any book that you pick up, there'll be something in there for you to pick up on. But there's not many, and I've read around quite a bit, and there's not many that I've seen over the years, over the months, with that talks about this element. It's all very sort of tactical. Do these things and do them consistently, and that's fine. But when Dave and I talked through this and through the experiences that we've had, if we come all the way back, I think, to our very first episode where we flippantly talked about, I tried marketing for a month and it didn't work. Again, genuine comment. I guess we always feel that there needs to be something on the side of all of these tactics to remind people that the psychology of this journey is hugely important. And it's very, very easy to get sidetracked, particularly if you are an owner manager, and you have that responsibility for sales and marketing. Guess what? Other things come along. Things catch fire. Stuff happens. Client things happen. And more often than not, and again, we hear this day after day after day, marketing and sales activities get pushed down the pile. Particularly if everything's sort of okay and everything's a bit flat and you maybe pick up a 1 or 2 clients a year sort of thing. It's like it sort of takes care of itself. But if you have that ambition, the things that we talked about in that last session, that desire for growth and to perhaps exit one day, then you need to have the right mindset attached to this framework. And there's 3 quick things I'm going to give you from a psychological aspect, which may just help a little bit. And the first one is, most people watching this, I think, will be have a sort of a technical slant to what they do. And people often ask us, is marketing sales, is it a science? Is it an art? Well, I think, we would argue it's a process. And if you turn it into a process, suddenly it doesn't feel so bad because you can create SOPs and you can say that, I'm going to spend half an hour every other day. It's in the diary following up on intent data. Or I'm going to instruct, if you remember back to what I was talking about on the creating those testimonials, there's going to be an SOP in place with our technical team to extract some of these great comments and turn those into testimonials. There's a piece of marketing, but it's a process. So that's the first thing I'd suggest. The second thing I'd suggest is that nobody wakes up every morning dreaming of doing lead generation. We hate that phrase. It's just a horrible phrase. It's very non-human. and we're all about humans. Remember, we're talking all about trust here and building trust. And I think just changing that phraseology. So rather than lead generation, we need to do lead generation. Let's just turn that around a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and start more conversations with people. We're just going to soften it a little bit. We're going to make it more human, and we're going to build that trust. So there's a tiny little psychological trigger in your mind. And then the final thing I'm going to throw in here very quickly is to accept, or be accepting, that this takes time. You can't click your fingers and generate leads from a standing start. Just doesn't work. How could it possibly work if you really think about it from a sort of a scientific approach? It can't work. So patience, persistency, consistency, PPC. If you can remember that every day when you wake up, that you're going to make those small incremental improvements to what you're doing. And certainly Dave talked about that in a previous session. I remember that that wind in your hair, the feeling of moving forwards, then again, psychologically, you're going to be more likely to engage in these activities on a regular basis if you can see that progress. So psychologically, get your head in the game, frame it right, and you stand a better chance of success.
Great. And then from we have accountability on the slide. So how does an MSP owner create that accountability across their marketing teams, across their sales teams, or even maybe with themselves if they don't have that true, we talked about, wind your hair, just start doing kind of the simple things, just start doing something. But how do you create that level of accountability?
You've got to have something tangible to work towards, as we discussed in the last session, having dashboards, having mapped out stats. And there's a few that I'm just going to share here that will help you build up to those conversations. The word lead is so ambiguous, but having a conversation with someone, you never know where it's going to go. So framing it in that way just helps you sort of break it down and make it feel more accessible, rather than lead feeling perhaps sort of quite foreign to those that are not from a sales background. But to build up to those, you've got to start with awareness. You've got to have an audience, and you've got to build awareness with that audience, and you've then got to engage that audience in order to foster interest and have them demonstrate things through intent marketing, have them to demonstrate that there is a level of interest there, that they're engaging with your content, they're visiting the website, they're clicking around and looking at certain blogs or certain pages, and then following up on that to create conversations. And it's, of course, all these numbers are relative to the size of your audience, but if you roughly run with looking at developing awareness with a third of your audience that you reach out to, and if you can then convert a third of that into some level of engagement, so a third of those people that open your emails will then click through to the website, will respond to LinkedIn messages, will fill in a contact form, and that you will then engage as many of those as possible to convert conversations into opportunities, identifying that there is a potential area, a potential pain point where you can do business in the longer term, to get them to a tangible opportunity where you can get a proposal out the door. So, roughly running with a third is a great way to carve that up for your audience outreach, that you can then see something happening. If you put together a couple of emails and you do an email blast, you send some follow-up LinkedIn connection requests, you can then feel the wind in your hair, because as long as you measure these stats and you look at them regularly, it will help you to maintain that much needed shot in the arm to keep going, just because the phone isn't ringing yet and no one said they're interested yet. You've got to build that awareness, build that trust, and follow up on it and do it consistently, as we've said, to get to the conversations. And one other thing from an accountability perspective, so it's one thing to have the numbers, it's another to hold yourself accountable. I've seen several MSP owners do, it kind of surprised me initially, but I can see how it works, to almost hold themselves accountable to their team. Staff retention is a huge thing for every MSP, and part of helping retain staff comes through the excitement of growth, that the business is going somewhere. So if you hold team meetings, make yourself accountable for reporting back to the team on, I've set out some marketing metrics and we've achieved 2 of the 5 that I set out. That's more than what we had last month because we didn't do anything. And then next month you might want to get a third in there out of the 5. So then they feel part of it as well. And something we threw back at a business that we've done some work with here, an MSP in the UK, their team were kind of keen on the growth. They wanted to see the business develop. They wanted to progress. They wanted to earn more money. So we said to them, well, what are you bringing to the table? What are you doing to help the organization grow? The poor boss is doing it on his own. So what are you doing to support that? And you can then share some of that accountability for things, even super basic things, like sharing the company LinkedIn posts on people's personal profiles. We mentioned about finding customer testimonials in positive conversations, and even maybe attuning their ears to spotting potential issues if a client isn't happy and does sort of voice something, that you can nip it in the bud before it becomes a risk to loss of revenue, but also keeping their ear to the ground for when a client may need to buy something. So often techies are, don't like to blow their own trumpet, will downplay everything, will wait for the customer to say, hey, can I buy that thing, rather than just attuning your ears to changes in a client's business that the techs on the help desk will know, because they're fielding the tickets when there's new hires, or we're looking at buying this new thing. Can you help us figure out if our server can run that software? And all of those little things that are going on that may not reach the sales guys, may not reach the boss that's doing the sales. So just keep your ears attuned, and maybe set some KPIs and some goals for your team as well, so you can hold each other to account. And of course, lastly, peer groups, networking with other people. As we've already said, that's a great way of reporting back to other people doing the same thing at the same time. But the team one is a great way for those of you that are not part of a peer group to start something now, today. Pull out some stats, sit down with your team and have a conversation about it.
And that kind of leads into my last question for this segment, is around, like, you're talking culture there. When you're talking about bringing in and building that level of transparency, basically with your team, you're shifting your culture of your MSP. Are there other cultural traits that kind of should be incorporated, or, an MSP business owner should support to help with their marketing efforts?
Yeah, I'll pitch in here. And I think sharing in the success of the business, possibly, even financially with people. And so I've seen it was an experiment which worked on again, a help desk team, relatively young company, or young help desk team, I should say. And they were having, I actually sat and listened to some of these conversations, and I could hear, previous to that, anecdotally, there was lots of great conversations going on with customers on the phone. Oh, we need to do this thing. We're thinking about it. What do you reckon? And the technician would go, oh, yeah, it sounds great. We'd be able to do X, Y, and Z. And they go, okay, cool. Thanks very much. And put the phone down. And what we actually did, Stefanie, is we actually put desktop wallpapers on all of their machines with a very, very simple phrase on it, which was just escaped me. But it was along the lines of, would you like us to book that in? It was a very, very simple phrase that the technician, it wasn't selling it. It wasn't selling it. It was just making people move forwards, essentially. So, yeah. So then the conversation started to tell, oh, look, we're going to want to do this thing. Oh, yeah, sounds great. We could help. And rather than them putting the phone down, well, would you like us to book that in? And then there would be a hesitation on the other end. And when someone realized they had to spend some money, it's like, no, yes, I would. And so I think, again, that's a sort of a teamwork in terms of moving the needle on those sales coming through. No, that's not traditional sales and marketing, if you like, but it's brilliant. That's the sort of the white space thing that we've been talking about, selling to existing customers. And Dave's absolutely right. Your technicians, engineers are in the perfect place to help move opportunities forward when they're and spotting opportunities as well. So I do sometimes think there's a trick lost there. And I think that the help desk team are sometimes hugely undervalued, and they're there just to solve problems, as opposed to they can be ones generating potential new business as a result of the conversations going on. So I think, yeah, culturally, it's just making people aware that everybody's in the same boat, And, I think it applies to lots and lots of different, including our own. Just because there's 2 or 3 of us get involved in sales, there is nothing to stop the rest of the business spotting something that a client's asked for and go, hey, yeah, no, we can help with that.
It's just listening.
Being
It's
attuned.
just fine tuning your listening skills a little bit
Yep.
more, but just cultivating that sense of that everybody's accountable, like you were
Yeah.
saying. Like, we're all accountable to growing the business, because when you feel accountable, you want to help. And I think that those are some great points that you have
There's a
mentioned.
fine line, the last thing I'd say, between scaring people, going, well, if you don't help us sell more stuff, then the business is closing down.
Yeah,
But there's ways of phrasing it. Say, hey, look,
absolutely.
and actually the final bit I didn't mention was around actually compensating people for those little moments. If someone has done that little upsell, or they sold them a thing, or give them $100 pound Amazon voucher as a thank you, or whatever it may be, and potentially even incentivize people to do it, because it might even make them more attuned.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I'm doing that, my bunny is, but make them more tuned to hearing the things that customers are saying.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you, gentlemen, again, for talking about the human factor, that the human mentality, the leadership of the MSP business owner plays a huge part. Culture plays a huge part in getting the different puzzle pieces of that marketing operating system into play. In our next episode, it's going to be your last one. We're going to attempt to kind of tie it all together for you, how you can use the marketing operating system to help you properly position yourself so you can stand out in a crowd. According to the Enable Horizons report this year, Canalys now states that there's well over 338,000 companies out there globally delivering some sort of managed services type of offering. So that's a lot of competition. So how can you rise above the noise and showcase your MSP in the best possible way? So that's what we're talking about on our last episode of building your MSP's marketing operating system on Tech It to the Bank.